I've noticed on a lot of the Facebook groups that actually it's quite an inflammatory topic as well, isn't it? And there's the definite camps of we hate rodents, we don't care what happens to them, which I wouldn't agree with, and we love them, they're fluffy and cutie, but equally they are a vector for disease and we've got to control them because of avian influenza. So we've got two camps, and James is very kindly going to try and balance that out for us and talk about so what we can do at home in order to discourage rodents, and he's going to bring up the elephant in the room about rodenticides as well, and we're going to talk also about when to seek for help, and if you do seek for help, what kind of qualifications and things are there that pest controllers have, so that you can try and find more responsible ones signed up to ethical codes if you want to, or if you don't. So it's all about making sure that you understand so that you can have a choice. Okay. So welcome to James Butcher. You can unmute yourself, please. There we go.
How are you?
James. So James Butcher is an award-winning poultry breeder, bantams, and a very, very experienced pest controller. And he was highly recommended when I put the advert out originally saying, does anyone know a good pest controller? James came up a few times with some very, very grateful clients of his. So thank you very much, James, for joining us. I know you're very, very well signed up to lots and lots of accreditations, so I will let you explain them in your own time afterwards. So by the end of this webinar, you should be able to identify if you have rodents visiting your birds. You'll be able to redesign your coop to try and reduce rodent contact. You should be able to identify the right times to ask for help. So whenever you tried and you've tried enough, come and get some help now. And you should be able to recognize accreditations as well, so that you can make some informed choices about who you want to help you. So I think you've probably all seen this rather delicious picture that's donated by one of my clients. It's the fattest, chunkiest monkey we could find. So I will let James take away. So what's your experience with rodents, and how did you get into this career, James?
Well, I was brought up on a farm, so very used to dealing with rodents around cattle yards and silage clamps. So was taught from a very early age on trapping and basic hygiene around feed stores, trying to keep them down to a minimum. And as we got older, obviously got involved with shooting them with air rifles around the farm to get the numbers down. And later on, after working on various farms in 2014, we started our own business, and I got trained by the RSPH and got my level 2 award in pest management, which is an intensive course, weeks course, and you have a exam on the last afternoon, which obviously you have to pass to get your certificate. And basically, I've not really looked back since.
So which came first, the rodents or the chickens?
Chickens.
Okay. And were the chickens the reason you got into the rodents, or just coincidence?
No. We had several coaches. I used to do some gardening work as well, so we had customers with chickens. So it seemed like a good idea to go into the pest control business as well, which is what we done.
Sounds sensible. So what do you think are the biggest challenges for you in your job?
I think the biggest challenge is trying to educate people against using rodenticides as a first line of defence. There are so many other ways, as I mentioned earlier. Hygiene, make sure your food stores are clean, make sure you've got feed in rodent-proof bins. A couple of years ago, we brought 3 metal dustbins for 10 quid off of Amazon. They're brilliant, and also make sure the environment that the chickens are in are clean. So the hedges are cut back, you've got rid of any undergrowth, so that rats can be, if you like, prone to natural predators, rather than hiding, if you like, in the undergrowth where they can't get to them, and then you have to resort to major actions, if you like, to deal with them.
Oh, that's interesting. So I think last month when we had the Hygiene for Hens talk, one of the advice was try and keep the grass mown around coops and hedges and things, not next to coops. But I hadn't quite twigged the point of that. So yeah, that's actually very sensible. You know, they won't want to be on exposed ground, will they?
No, rats hate to be exposed to the environment because of natural predators. You know, so birds of prey, you know.
Yeah, that makes some sense. And what I mean, I've seen some that you talked about feed bins. What are they capable of raising some lids?
Not a dustbin lid.
Okay, right. Because sometimes people have their food in slightly smaller metal kind of silo-y things with flat lids. Are they able to nose up under those, or? Oh,
they shouldn't really be able to climb up the side of the bin, being metal.
Okay. Right.
But I mean, if it happened, then you would need to make sure they were either tied down or had something heavy on the top to stop them lifting it. Yeah. But it shouldn't be a problem.
I've got one of those automated cat feeders that's got the like snap clip lock things on.
Yes.
And my cat manages to get it off. So I got a brick on it.
Spoiled.
So, it's nice to know that my cat is more clever or cleverer than the rats. So that's good.
Absolutely.
So how do you identify rodent activity in your coops at home? And are the signs all obvious, or there's some subtle signs?
The obvious sign is going to be droppings. They're quite large, they're about 12 millimeters long, spindle shaped. Gnawing, burrowing, you'll see earth and bits of stone have been dug out from under a house or to get underneath of a run. Less or more subtle things are smear marks, because rats have like a grease in their fur, same as mice actually. But so when they go over something like a piece of timber or even ground, it leaves like a shiny smear mark.
Oh, okay.
Which once you spotted one, they become obvious and you suddenly realise actually how many there are around.
So I think we'll all start Googling rat smear marks. Just be careful what you come up with. That probably advise there. And there's a question about, do you think they're able to lift a plastic dustbin lid, or are you going to say they can't scale the plastic dustbin?
They shouldn't be able to scale it, but they can chew through the bottom of the plastic bin.
Right. Okay. So plastic dustbins are probably not ideal. Okay. Nope. Let's stick to metal then.
Needs to be metal.
Okay. Right. And how do you make sure that your coops are rodent proof? Because how many chickens have you got?
How many have we got now? 30. I think it's 36, 37 in total.
So quite a lot then to protect. So what do you do to make your coops rodent proof?
Well, at the moment the Pekins are all indoors. They're in a stable. So you need to make sure there's no gaps under the doors that rodents can get into. Our particular one has got a drain because it used to be an old milking shed. So the drain is actually blocked with a big roll of chicken wire rammed in the end, so any liquid can still escape, but rats can't come up from the drains.
That's a clever way of doing it, yeah.
Which is a very easy way for rats to enter buildings, is up through the drains. So that's what we do. The chicken runs outside, again, make sure it's good open space. We raise the chicken house actually off the ground, so they're on blocks, because rats, if they're too close to the ground, will get underneath and then make their nests. They will also harbour food underneath there and make it a nice home. And the ideal situation also is to pick up your feed and water each night and take in. Rats need an enormous amount of liquid in their diet to survive.
Oh, so it's not just the food that's important. You should also be taking your water in as well.
Water as well.
Okay, that's because I think that's something not a lot of people would think about.
No,
that's a clever one. And I take it your stable has got a concrete base then, has it?
Yes, it has. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's all concrete. And ideally, again, if you can get a chicken house, or not so much a house, but like a run, an ark, if it could be on a solid surface that they can't dig underneath. You know, you see some arks and you see where the rats have tunneled under the dirt to get in.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's a solid surface, they can't do that. So even, you know, like a layer of bricks or something around it, or underneath of it, or slabs, anything. So if they do tunnel under the slabs, they can't still get up into the run. So it protects them that way.
And how? I take it they can tunnel from quite far back in order to get under something, would they? Or do they tend not to give up, like a bit like foxes? Do they tend to give up after a certain sort of width of concrete around the outside?
We've known them tunnel through like garages. They've gone through one side right underneath and out the other side to get to the other side, to get to either a feed source or, get to their harbourage or create another harbourage area. Which again, it's why it's so important for your environmental cleanliness to make sure there are no, overgrown hedges or brambles or bushes. Make sure it's absolutely clean, so that they can't harbour anywhere. I mean, even compost heaps they go into.
I'm pretty sure something's living in my compost heap, but then my cat is a bit of a mouser and ratter, so I'm not sure what is silly enough to be there. But there's a hole. There's definitely some holes there.
Yeah.
I've just got a death wish. So you're suggesting having a base, and actually, as a vet, I very much like concrete bases, particularly in times of influenza, and it is going to get more and more frequent every winter, yeah. I suspect, because of global warming. It really does solve the mud problem and everything else if confined areas have a concrete, and then when they're free ranging, they're out and about on the grass. So that's my ideal. But I realise that not everybody can put a concrete base down. So what did you say were the other alternatives? Did you say?
If it's like a chicken ark, you could put it onto like slabs. Maybe you make a stone base and lay slabs on the top, which is obviously a lot cheaper than concrete, and sit the actual ark on the top of that.
So you much prefer making the floor surface impermeable rather than digging down under the sides to try and make a block?
Yes.
Okay. So one of the questions is, how deep can a rat burrow? Is that why you prefer the flat base? Because they can dig down pretty deep?
They can dig down very deep. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I've not dug up any burrows or anything to see how far deep they do go, but
but they always seem to get in, so
they do, absolutely.
Okay, that's a good tip then. We'll come to Louise's question afterwards, I think. Someone's asked if we concrete over the run, how can we create a dust bath? So I would suggest get a kid's sandpit, plastic sandpit, and use that as a dust bath. Just use your slabs as a base layer and then build on top of it. There's nothing to say you can't try and still get some plants in there, or build a raised bed on top of your slabs or your bricks or your concrete and still have a raised bed in there so that they can scratch around in bits and bobs, so long as that base layer is impermeable, it sounds like, to rats.
Even an old baking tray or something with sand or dust in it, then use it.
There we go. What if we can't put slabs in? Is wire under soil any good?
It will need to be a very, very fine wire, possibly a mesh rather than a wire like a rabbit wire, because rats only need something like 7 mil hole to get through.
A what?
They can get through very small gaps. So any gaps under doors ideally need to be less than 5 millimeters.
Less than 5? How on?
They can flatten their bodies to get under things.
That's just, I knew that, but I didn't realise the extent that they could. That's slightly horrifying. Yeah. Whoa! I'm just imagining their skull malforming under something. That's really weird. They are fascinating creatures. Oh dear, poor Ali. The rats have chewed around the wire around their run. So is there a particular thickness of wire then that you'd reckon that for like mesh wire is the thin stuff? Can they get through? Would you?
Yeah, I mean it needs to be ideally more than 1.5 to 2 mil in thickness of the actual wire. So it's like the wire you might have on a probably an aviary, if you like, or a rabbit hutch rather than chicken wire itself.
Okay.
So it's a small oblong shape wire, if you like. So the heavier duty you can use with the small mesh, the better.
Something like 16 gauge galvanized wire.
Yes, that would do.
There we go.
Yep.
Perfect. There we go. Lovely. We're going to get a whole host on the chat of different galvanized measurements now, aren't we? I'm sure that's going to happen. Right. So let's introduce the elephant in the room as we spoke about bait. Good old bait. What are the golden rules of baiting, and why are these golden rules so important?
The golden rule of baiting basically is don't use it unless you really have to. There are, as I said, so many other ways of dealing with rats before you even need to think of using baits. I think they're too far widely used, and we are seeing resistance against rodenticides in rats, which is making them even more difficult to control.
It's slightly weird, isn't it? You think of resistance being a thing, only by bacteria and viruses. It's pretty weird to think that we're using a product so much that we're actually making mammals resistant, considering how long a mammal's life cycle is compared to a bacteria. It's terrifying. It really does showcase the amount it has been overused over the years.
Yeah, and that's why, as I mentioned before, hygiene, environmental cleanliness. You can use snap traps, put them in either in a tunnel, so they're not affected by non-target species, i.e. birds. You can even get like rat boxes, bait boxes that have a trap within them, so you're not actually using baits. And there are some fancy gizmos you can buy on the internet that you bolt to a wall and has a small amount of bait underneath of it. And when the rat goes to feed, it pings down and basically breaks its neck. But again, birds or anything else could be prone to that. I've never used them, so I wouldn't know. But certainly trapping would come way, way ahead of poisoning at all.
And we'll talk a little bit later about things like the SR. Oh, I can never remember the acronym. We'll talk about that later. But there are many different sort of organisations and accreditations that are exploring the effects on wildlife and things, and trying to educate pest controllers, aren't there? So we'll chat about that later. I've got a question. Does the gypsum flour sugar mix work?
Never tried it, so I wouldn't know, to be honest. There's your honest answer.
No, I don't know, but isn't gypsum don't they use gypsum in building?
Yes, yeah, they do.
My dad's probably like going, "Oh my goodness, my daughter doesn't know what gypsum is. How embarrassing!" At this point, whoopsies. I think any product that you don't know what it's actually doing to a poor mammal's insides is probably should not be the highest on your list to use. I would probably say that one. And somebody, so Jules, thank you. They have sadly had birds die in their snap bait box. So you're right, James. Birds can get in, and someone has had that problem. So that's a real shame. We talked about solid bases earlier. What about rats getting in from above? So particularly, for example, people that have like built their coop and built tops around trees, or other places like that. Yeah, how rats getting in from the top? What kind of materials are they less likely to chew through that you can put on tops of runners?
Again, the heavy gauge galvanized, small gauge wire. So they're obviously, climbing up the house or getting in from, again, overgrowth. If it's too close, they can then get on the top and gain entry. And a normal rabbit wire, they will get through the wire as well and get down into the run. Okay. So the smaller gauge, thicker wire you can put on there, the better.
Better. And there's somebody's asked, is there a way to stop the rats eating the eggs? I take it the answer is make your pen rat proof.
Make it rat proof as much as you can.
So
if a rat wants to get in there, they will somehow. They're pretty determined. But if you take all the measures that you can, obviously remove the eggs on a regular basis, that's going to help the situation a bit.
They should be laying them in the morning, really. So it's not like you should be going in there to do it all day, really.
No, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, when we're not in an avian influenza lockdown and the doors are open, then the rats have more access. What are there a particular time of day that they're more active?
Rats are more active at night. They're nocturnal, so they're not normally around in the day. If you do see them during the day, it's normally because they're short of food, or the population is getting, if you like, rather large, and they're having to feed during the day, because rats will feed on a hierarchy. So if you like, the king rats will feed, they take their food first before anyone else can have theirs. Which is again with baiting, people say, oh, we keep putting bait down and it keeps going, it doesn't seem to work. It's because the ones that are fed on it early have gone off and died, and now the second lot are coming through and they're starting to have theirs, and it'll go on and on. So, you use every means possible to try and keep them under control so you don't get to that point.
Someone's been using traps in a rat box, and they've no longer had signs of rats, but they have recently been trapping mice. Do they generally exist together?
Yes, they can do. Yeah, they can do. Yeah, they're very, if you like, family orientated, and mice are a lot more inquisitive than rats. If you put a bait box down for a rat with a trap in it, anything different, it probably take them 7 to 10 days to get used to it before it go near it. Okay. Whereas there's a mouse will find something new and think, oh, that looks interesting, and within a couple of hours they're in there.
Oh, bless them. Whoops.
Yeah.
And for the humane traps that catch them alive, what should one do with a trapped rat or mouse once one's got a live one in a box?
Well, it needs to be dispatched, unfortunately, and it has to be done humanely. So it's actually against the law to drown them or do anything stupid like that. So if they're in a live trap, then you have to basically get them out with a pair of gloves on and dispatch them humanely.
You can't drive down to the next village and release them somewhere?
It's not ideal. Don't think you'd be popular with the next village.
Okay. I saw quite a few people that said that's what they do. And some more comments, in return to that, saying, "Oh, but they travel this many miles, they just kind of come back home again." Imagine you're someone who really doesn't want to kill things, but equally you want to protect your birds, and you use a humane trap. What would you advise they did once they caught one?
I guess if they were against killing it, they'd have to take it somewhere else, as you said, to release it. But it's not ideal because it's not decreasing the population.
Yeah. And I suppose it's potentially it's quite stressful for the animal too, isn't it, really? And it's probably the least thing in their mind, but especially if they are very family hierarchical, being dumped somewhere else and someone else's territory as such might actually, I suppose, be a bit stressful, mightn't it?
They'd probably be more than likely killed by other rats in that area because they're out of their place.
So people might think it's the humane thing to do, but it might not actually be best for the rat.
No, definitely not.
Okay. And can they call a pest controller if they find one and they need help with it?
I would have thought so, yes.
Okay, yeah. There we go. Lovely. If we do use traps and we kill one, how do we dispose of the carcass, especially in the summer, is a question.
A lot of vets actually have a like an incineration service.
Oh yes, we do. I forgot about that. Yeah, we do.
Yeah, and that's how we get rid of them. So that's very handy. If you're having a bonfire or garden incinerator, you can burn them. But whatever you do, please, if you poison them and find dead ones, don't throw them over the hedge into the field or in the woods or anywhere else, because they're going to be picked up by owls or foxes or something else, and you might end up poisoning something else that you don't want to.
I suppose it might be that a rat's taken some bait elsewhere and been a bit sleepy and dopey and ended up in your trap, mightn't it? You don't know.
Yes, that. Quite possible. You never know.
And burying, the rules around burying, I don't actually know the legislation around that. Rats.
No, you shouldn't do, especially if they've been poisoned, because they could be dug up by foxes or dogs or anything else.
So incineration, whether or not you do it on site or whether you take it to your local vets, I think. I assume they will charge for that, but it'll be I assume it'll be a small charge.
It's minimal charge.
You did mention about humanely and not to drown them and things. Can you possibly elaborate on how one could dispatch of a court rat humanely, please?
Use of an air gun to shoot it, or you, as I said, decent pair of gloves, and you can use a mace and just break the back of the neck. It's quick. It's quick. It's humane. It's rather than suffering. As I said, it is illegal to beat them or drown them or anything else, and you can be prosecuted for it. So if you're going to catch them, deal with it humanely. If you don't want to deal with it, don't catch them.
Yes, exactly, yeah. Or call a pest controller.
Absolutely.
Good point.
Yeah. And most reputable pest controllers always give free advice on the phone as well, which is another point. Because we can help you, give you advice, and hopefully you can almost solve your own problem without paying somebody else to come and do it. And we will also do a free inspection without obligation and give you advice, depending on where you are, obviously. But a good reputable one will always give you free advice. Good
tip. So we'll go back to baits now. I think we've done traps to death. It's bad pun there. How safe is it for birds and the environment for people to bait with off-the-shelf rat baits that you can get from your local DIY store?
It's always a risk. Even for professionals, there is a risk, even though you carry out risk assessments and you work out the best places to put the stuff. I've seen bait just scattered around outside sheds, inside sheds, open floors, chicken runs even. And even people have lost chickens because they picked up the rat bait. So it does need to be in a secure box, in an appropriate location, and it does need to be monitored. And if you are going to use baits, just be really responsible. Think about non-target species, your birds, cats, dogs, anything, and just make sure they are as safe as possible.
Okay. Is there a difference between the type of bait then that people get on the shelf and the type of baits that pest controllers get?
There's a difference in the strength, obviously, and I know I'm biased. I would recommend anybody that's going to use baits at least look up Lantra, which is a training facility, and they will do a small course online with a short exam at the end. It gives you an insight into knowledge and an insight into rat control, rather than just go out buying bait and using it willy-nilly. It'll help educate you. You can also download the CRRU code. I've got the link there somewhere for that one. www.thinkwildlife.org.uk, and you can print that off free of charge. Very useful. It looks, for those that haven't seen it, like that. And it's got all the rules and legislation and what you should and shouldn't be doing in there. And I would urge anyone to get it, read it, and abide by it.
I had to do a very embarrassing task once. In fact, it was just before the first lockdown last March. And because COVID was so much on the rise, we had various speakers who didn't turn up to the British Poultry Veterinary Association's conference, and sadly the one on rodenticides and introducing the new SRUC code, it was that speaker who couldn't make it, and silly old me went, because I'm on the committee, I went, I give lectures all the time at university with no preparation. Yeah, I can do it. Give me that. And I had to just deliver this horrific presentation on rodenticides with all these graphs, and it was fascinating. I learned a lot about the links between different rodenticides coming out and how the populations had changed between like red kites and other carrion eating animals, and it was pretty depressing, but very embarrassing experience, because so many acronyms that you use, and I had kept going, audience, does anyone know what this means? Because I actually the foggiest idea, even though I'm supposed to be the speaker. It was it was very embarrassing.
Bless you.
Someone's asked about so once you've actually got rats, even though you are, so they're going to address hygiene, address tidiness, they're going to put a solid base in. What else can they do to get rid of them, or do they simply end up going, oh, there's no food here, let's move on?
Basically, if you can remove any food source and just make it unattractive as you can to rats, normally they will leave anyway and go somewhere else.
How long does that take sometimes for them to give up?
Oh, not very long at all. You'll be surprised. Yeah, I mean, if you clear your undergrowth, get tidied up, get your hygiene in order, they will leave.
Okay. And if you have a very
even picking up any field feed out of the feeders at night, sweep it up, get rid of it, get it off the ground, and don't ground feed your birds, basically. Will also help make sure they're in feeders. And I know somebody's going to ask me what's the best feeder to have that doesn't feed corn, because I don't know. I haven't found one yet.
I was just about to say the grandpa feeders are the ones that get the general accolades, aren't they? They happen to be quite expensive. That's the problem, really, isn't it? But are they genuinely rat proof in your opinion? I can cut this bit so that you're not on the web, just giving your opinion about this, but just for us who's here, and then I'll cut it later.
As I said before, if a rat wants to get at something, it will get at it somehow.
Okay, fine. And how heavy is a rat up to?
They can get up to about 1 kilo.
Oh, blimey. Okay, that's quite a chunky. See, my gerbils used to be about 60 grams, so that's quite a lot, really, isn't it? That's a fatty rat. So what's a grandpa feeder? Okay. It is so it's a top of the range tread on feeder. Thank you for telling us that answer. It's got a platform, the chicken jumps onto it, the weight of the chicken pushes the platform down and up pops the lid, and then when they jump off it stands shut again. And the aim is so that a rat isn't heavy enough, but you've got to be a bit careful, because if a bantam can get in, then it sounds like a kilo rat might be able to get in. So I don't know whether you can, actually I do know someone who got some knockoff ones by mistake, and they weren't weighted very well, and I'm pretty sure the other half, they're probably listening here now going, yes, that was me. They changed the weights on it to make it harder to open, but they don't have any bantams. So I suppose you can tweak them, but with the large fowl birds, they would probably be okay. But because the bantams are so light, a rat gets on there, it's going to open it. Even so, they can probably push it open. With their muzzle. But they're just, they're intelligent creatures. They're like Marmite. You love them all over them. I love their little scaly tails. Somebody's just, there's been a few sad stories to do with bait up that I feel I have to read them out for the sake of the dogs that suffered. My poor dog ate rat bait from a neighbour, and poor thing ended up being put to sleep. So I'm sorry about the loss of your dog there. And someone else is, in fact, 2 other people have said that their neighbour's dog ate bait that the rat had actually dragged out of the bait box. So that's a bit horrific, isn't it?
I mean, most professionals now will use block bait that is actually pinned inside of the box. So where people used to use the old grain bait and it used to get scratched out and the wild birds would get at it as well, these blocks are held in place within the box, so they cannot be pulled out.
Back onto slightly more sunny grounds. Do hanging feeders help? I mean, I'd say that if there's any potential for spillage from said hanging feeder, then that's also a problem. But if they're left in the shed hanging, does that stop a rat get into it, or they're just going to knock it, swing it, and get the food out?
If it's hanging inside a run or a house, you can use a meat hook at night and just hook it up, so it's well off the ground.
Oh, good idea. Yeah, so you don't have to bring it in, just make it higher out of reach.
Just make it high that they can't get to it.
Okay, yeah. That's a really good idea. My dad used to have, Daddy's probably going to correct me here, like, no, we didn't have that. I remember it being like a kind of dustbin that they pecked on the bottom, and it came out.
Okay.
Yeah. That was quite good at minimizing, but again, you've just got to make sure that they don't get bored and feed doesn't accumulate at the bottom. Even if you put like a flat tray underneath, that you can take the tray in every night, on those kind of systems. And if you do choose, so I've kicked my cables again. If you do have hanging feeders as well, try to make sure that they've got those like spokes going all around the outside, or the inside of them, because it will stop them putting their beaks in and tossing their heads and tossing it all across the
Beacons are very good at that.
Yeah, it's like, I don't want that bit. I want that bit at the bottom, and then they've caused a shower. And some people do like to scratch feed for enrichment. So I would suggest if you do that, very small amounts of large particle things that they can see easily. Yes. Finely chopped up maize and crumb is not ideal, because you won't be able to seal those bits at the end. No. And it's got to be manageable quantity. And perhaps scratch feed with grit, because that's not going to attract the rats as well.
No. And just, if you're going to ground feed, just make sure you give them a very small amount at a time, and make sure they clear it.
Yeah.
If they're not clearing it, you've given them too much, basically.
And another very sensible thing that if a grandpa feeder can't, won't stop a rat, or that style feeder won't stop a rat of a kilo, a real fatty one. Does it still prevent food spilling on the ground? I think
I think whatever feeder you use, they seem to spill it. I've never found one that works yet properly.
Yeah, so you might still need to put it on a tray, and maybe with the grandpa feeders at night time, instead of bringing them in, just weight them down with some bricks. Perhaps that might be another option. So in the day, it's there that chickens can open it, but in the night time, shove some bricks on it so they definitely can't get in.
Yeah, could do that, and also the treadle feeders they can leak food at the back of it, so they need picking up and moving.
Mm-hmm.
And then that being cleared up underneath. We had them for our Pekins, and we gave up using them because we had so much wasted corn coming out the back. We gave up with them.
Fair enough. Question of what's grit? I mean grit as in like oyster shell or flint grit, either the calcium supplement grit or mechanical digestion grit. That's what I mean when I say grit. And somebody asked, I'm watching the chat and you're all seeing my face, and my face is going like, oh, what's that? It's because I read something interesting. And my neighbour noticed a rat gnaw teeth marks on the soles of her pony's feet after a night in the stable. Have you ever heard such a thing?
Yes.
Oh, good Lord. That was quite a definite yes.
Yes. And cattle's feet as well. Sheep.
Really?
Yes.
I mean, I love how when I've seen hoof trimmers, foot trimmers, cattle foot trimmers clawing off, paring off a cow's hoof, the dogs often want to eat it. So do they they just must taste nice, mustn't they?
I mean, rats, any rodent's teeth is constantly growing, so they need to keep gnawing to keep them worn down.
Oh, it's more of
they take longer and longer, and that's why they chew everything. They chew through electric cables, water pipes, wood, you name it, they'll chew it just to keep their teeth down.
I'll remember that. You name it. I think we'll be using that, won't we, in our day-to-day. I'm trying really hard not to tell a really terrible thing from university. Right. Acknowledging that people are on really tight budgets at the moment, when is the right time to admit you need help and call a pest controller? As
I said earlier, actually, most reputable firms will give you free advice over the phone. So it doesn't necessarily need to cost you any money to start with. Get the advice that you need. As I said, we, among others, will do no obligation free inspection and come out and have a look and give you the advice and tell you what we think you should be doing. And very often, a lot of people can actually cure the problem themselves without, involving, professional pest controllers. But obviously, especially on some farms where rat populations have just got out of hand, then you do need to go in with some, if you like, some heavy duty stuff to get the problem sorted quick. And then you leave your recommendations and say, look, get this bank cleaned, get this shed cleaned up. 9 times out of 10, they do it and they don't really have any major problems again. They deal with it with traps. But then you get the other ones that moan about the cost and then don't do anything. And in 6 months' time, they're calling you again, say, oh, the rats are back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's got to be an all-encompassing, holistic kind of management. It can't,
Yes.
any one thing on the list is not going to be a super cure-all.
No, it's definitely not. It's a combination of things,
Okay.
And it all needs to be done and done, in an order, if you like, before even really the bait goes down, preferably.
And what kind of, so if people are playing cautious or just want to be, very efficient, how many is too many so how many would you then call a pest controller if you weren't inclined to, if you wanted help from the get-go?
I suppose it would depend on the amount of damage they're doing.
Okay.
I mean, that as a rule, they say if you see one rat, count 10.
Oh, well, that answers the question, because she said 1 or 2, or do we call the Pied Piper? Okay, so let's assume if you see 1 or 2, that's 10 or 20. That's nice.
Yes, absolutely.
Lovely. I don't know if anybody has been to a park in Godalming where there's a lake. Can you hear me? Can you remember what that lake's called? I think my husband is just ignoring me. Fair enough. And so I went on a toddler walk, my friend, and the bushes just started moving. It was really unpleasant. And then I suddenly spotted all the bait boxes all around this lake. And yeah, I suppose because people are picnicking or what, but it was weird seeing actually in broad daylight, they were scurrying around. I counted about 10 in one spot. It was pretty.
Well, there you go. There's 100 at least then.
Oh, yeah, exactly. What about using dogs and cats?
Sorry?
Dogs and cats, do they really put vermin off, or do they make them think again?
No, yes, dogs are very good. My son had a Patterdale Terrier and he was wicked with rats.
Well, they get their name terrorist for a reason.
Exactly. And cats also are very good, and you can get them from, rescue centres, like farm cats. These days they're neutered. And they'll supply you with a couple of cats for a donation, and they work wonders. They're brilliant.
And you're much better off getting ex-farm cats, I would say, rather than a pedigree, well-bred moggy in a home, because
absolutely,
they don't know what on earth to do with a rat, I would say.
Exactly.
My son was given a lovely book for Christmas about a cat by my friend, and the cat goes and asks, can I come live with you? And they go, no, you can't live with us. Can I live with you? No, you can't live with us at all. And then he finally gets to a farm and says, oh, can I live with you? Why? Well, what do you do? And he says, well, I just sit here and look beautiful and make myself known. The rats see me. I don't need to move. They run away and they all leave the farm. And now, the cow produces milk again. The sheep has and the cat's just like, no, I just be seen. That's all I do.
Yeah.
So I suppose that might have some effect as well, just having the predator present, isn't it?
Absolutely. And just another way of controlling rats. There are many air rifle clubs up and down the country who will come and shoot rats for you free of charge.
Okay.
But obviously you need to make sure that they are legitimate club members who would have had some sort of formal training. Not just a lad from down the road that's going to come and shoot your windows out your caravan or your shed, or but that's another line you could use.
Okay. That's a good tip to check they're actually registered with proper shoots, because I know they are vermin, but they still deserve to die humanely and quickly.
Absolutely.
A good shot through the heart is far preferable to a shot through the leg and a maimed rat.
Exactly. Absolutely.
I store my feed in plastic bins. Okay, so we just agreed that plastic bins are not ideal. But bedding wise, is bedding attractive to rodents? Do the bedding also need to be stored in metal containers, or do they not really attract?
If you store it in, depends obviously what amount of bedding you've got to store. I mean, some people have bales of hay and straw that are stored in sheds, which rats will love to get underneath and make their nest in. So again, it needs to be in a store that is as rat proof as you can make it. But if you're only on small quantities, then yes, they could be stored in dustbins, you know, or somehow up on a shelf, you know, that's on a, you can't really say a bracket, it's away from the wall, so they climb across it. But yeah, use your head basically. You know, as long as they're stored, they're securely, the building is secure itself, and just don't leave it lying around, and clear up again any spillages to make it as unattractive to the rats as possible.
So it's not that they want to eat the bedding, it's that they might take it away and make a nest out of it?
Exactly, yes, it's exactly what they do with it.
Making them a nice, comfortable, cosy duvet that you're providing, which is very generous, very generous.
I remember when I was a child, we were moving some hay bales out of the stable, and I was probably only about 12, 13, and we moved this bale, and there must have been about 30 rats, and one ran across my feet, one went up my leg. I left that stable building very quickly.
Oh no.
Little did I know later on in life.
Well, don't worry. Someone said to me for the umpteenth time, did you change your name to Henrietta because you're a chicken vet? I went, no, it's just a really bad coincidence. Thank you, Mummy and Daddy, for calling me Henrietta. I don't know if nature nurture. Did I become a chicken vet because my parents called me Henrietta? I don't know. Right, I'm going to flip on to the last slide here about can you list and explain the various acronyms that are used by pet controllers regarding accreditations and codes of practice promoting responsible rodenticide use?
Yes, the BPCA is a British Pest Controllers Association, and they provide training through the Royal Society of Public Health. And they ensure ongoing training, basis points or CPD points, which is continuing professional development points. So you have to do so many training days a year, or even online learning as we are now. So if you like, keep your license. Prompt is a professional pest controllers register. And again, they deal with training and backup for pest controllers and management. The NPTA is the National Pest Technicians Association. Again, they provide advice and training to professional pest controllers. And you can also actually look any of them up, and they will help you find a pest controller that's registered with them in your area, which is a very good way of doing it, because then you know that person. Yeah, or as I said, the Lancer Awards is the one that I mentioned earlier. You can do online, get a bit of training behind you and a certificate, just to say that you've done some formal training. But if you're looking for a professional, you want to be looking for BPCA or an MPTA prompt member, and who's affiliated with the CRRU, which is a campaign for responsible rodenticide use, which is backed by the Wildlife Trust.
So yeah, that's the website too, or that's the logo to look for when you go to the website to try and find the CRU downloadable one.
The codes, yeah.
Summarising pretty much what the main advice is. So do feel free to add anything if I've left it off the list. So keeping things clean, just trying to make the environment less hospitable for rats, keeping them tidy again, trying to make sure that you've got sort of corridors around the coop that are that going to discourage rats and make them more exposed to predators. Having a solid base, whether or not that's concrete or whether you're going to use slabs or bricks or something, or use mesh. But if you do use mesh, then it has to be thick rabbit mesh and not standard chicken wire.
Yeah.
Those methods are much better than trying to prevent them from burrowing under walls, however deep you dig them in. It's a bit of a challenge. And removing all feed and water. Water's
Yes.
a big one. A big one. Anything else we need to add to that for the bee's knees for let's put rats off?
Yeah, we'll keep clean. Is like your feed store, clearing up any spillages, make sure stuff's secured, stored securely in metal bins, and keep tidy is your environmental area. So as you said, keeping clear of brambles, keep hedges cut, make the area as inhospitable to rats as possible.
How much of a worry do rats pose in terms of disease to chickens and us consuming their eggs? I assume this is for me, don't worry. So rodents, no different to flies, to be honest, or other sort of insects can get a bit out of control for chickens, things like litter beetles. They're all very good at cycling things like Salmonella, Campylobacter, E. coli. They're just very good at finding something, eating it, and it just replicates in their gut, and then they're pooing it out. So they're acting like little pathogen factories, effectively. So it's not as if, they carry the plague or something. For an egg hygiene perspective and human safety, it's purely that higher levels of rats are likely going to mean higher levels of things like Salmonella and E. coli in your flock, I would say. So that's the reason, from a public health perspective, to control them. And when it comes to things like avian influenza, it's not that they carry the disease, it's that simply viruses and bacteria can stick to their little paws or their fur, and then when they run through your bedding or they brush along your walls, then they're wiping those pathogens off. They're very much mechanical vectors rather than intermediate hosts for things, if you want the veterinary boring term. Of course, lepto. Yeah, I forgot about lepto. That's a very good point, except for lepto,
Yep.
which they will carry and is spread in the urine. So yeah, apart from lepto.
Yeah, and just a few more facts to maybe get into people's minds. That rats breeding cycle, they can breed at 8 weeks old. The young are weaned at 3 weeks. The gestation period is 21 days, and their litters number 5 to 8. So a breeding pair of rats in just 1 year can produce an infestation of 2,000.
Ah. Lovely. That's a notice, isn't it, tonight? I hope no one's having
Sobering thought.
to go to bed. How about keeping things like ferrets? Does simply the smells of ferrets and things like dogs put them off? Are they very pheromone sensitive to that, or do they just go, we know you're safe in a cage or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, ferrets produce a lot of urine, which is ammonia, which will attract rats.
Oh, it'll actually attract rats.
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay.
Bit like rabbits in hutches, just the same.
Oh, right. Okay, so don't keep ferrets to get away from your rats. That's a really bad idea. I'm glad you put that up on there. Whew, okay, lucky. Right.
I mean, if you're going to keep ferrets or rats, just make sure they're cleaned out regularly, keep the smell down. Again, keep the area clean and tidy.
Don't put them next to your chickens, ideally. Try and keep them apart, I think would be a good one. I suppose you might freak the chickens out anyway. It's probably not a good welfare thing for chickens to have a predator wandering around. Right, well, if there are no more questions, then we usually break for, I would like to know how to block existing rat holes.
Where are the holes?
Where are the holes, please?
In the ground, in timber, or?
I'm assuming she's typing away as we speak. In the run in the soil.
Yes. Until you get rid of the rat, there's no point actually filling the hole. Because if you fill the hole up, they're just going to dig it out or dig another one.
I think you need to go back to the whole solid base.
Yes, ideally.
If the answer was in walls and things like that, things that are more difficult to cope with, how
in walls you can use just sand and cement and plug up any holes, just some pug, or again screwed up by a mesh, screwed up nice and tight and rammed into the hole hard, stop them getting in. And on timber, put a timber skirt, or if you've got something, you can put some form of metal strip on the bottom of the door so they can't scratch or chew through the bottom of it. There's plenty of ways to block the holes that way, but in the ground, unfortunately, once they're in there, they're going to make a mess.
Do greenhouses attract rats?
Wouldn't have thought so.
In the greenhouse, I would probably say.
I've never been called to a rat in the greenhouse, I must admit.
There you go. So no, the answer is no. And rat holes under mobile chicken coop that are moved frequently. Oh yeah, of course, because if you're moving your coop, that's a bit of a pain. But I think maybe you could, if you're moving a coop, you could still put the mesh at the bottom, couldn't you? Still.
Yes. Yeah.
The mobile coops get mesh at the bottom. Can a rat kill a chicken?
Yes.
Lots of attacks overnight.
Yeah, we had 7 chicks went overnight that were under in a brooder ring, but not in a brooder ring. They were in a plastic tray under a brooder lamp in the stable, and that's when we discovered they were coming through the drain.
No.
And went out there next morning. There was only one left, and not a sign of them. Yes. And then lifted the drain hole cover, and then found the wings in the drain. So, hence we said about covering drain holes or blocking them up. So yes, they will. They will take chickens.
And what sort of age up? Like what sort of size will they?
Oh, they'll take a Peking bantam.
Okay.
Fully grown one. I mean, they're not huge, but certainly young ones. And also, actually, we had about a fortnight, 3 weeks ago, a friend down the road had 3 chickens killed by a mink.
I take it if your coop is rat proof, then it will be mink proof as well.
It should be.
do rats do it for fun or for food?
Food.
Okay.
Food, yeah. I mean, I must admit these birds were free ranging and they've got a pond in their garden, so it's a risk you take, as with all predators.
Someone's asked about plant fertilizers. She thinks plant fertilizers seem to attract rodents. Is that a thing?
I wouldn't have thought so.
Okay. I did notice today that my grow more smelt far more like pee than the fish blood and bone meal. But that, I don't know. It could be a thing. I don't know. And somebody just said that they lost 5 small turkey poults overnight.
Yeah.
No idea how they got out. So assuming it was rats.
Yeah.
In a shed.
Sounds like it.
That was awful. Great.
There you go. You're back.
There we go. So electric fences. Someone's using a 0.7 volt electric fence near the ground where they really struggle to block a certain hole, and apparently it's stopping them from climbing up. I don't know what.
Okay, good. If it works for you, go with it.
Is it a normal thing that it works, or are they quite lucky?
I would have thought they'd have gone under it. Depends how low to the ground they've got it.
They have got concrete.
Okay.
But they were still getting in through gaps around doors and things. It's causing trouble, I think.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. If it works for them, fine.
Okay, but it's not something that's well known as a brilliant anti-rat thing.
No.
And so made a very good point in that if you're not sure and you can't find grease spots and you've had a look for feces and things and trails, then a chicken cam, a motion sensor chicken cam. A lot of people are saying that's a fantastic way of finding if they've got rats, and it's actually set up for the chickens and gone, oh, it's the rats that set it off all night. I've put the summary here, so the summary will also come up again now if people look back at it, or if you're not sure, you can just skip forward to the through the video and get to the summary. But just a reminder that they're important to control, not only due to avian influenza and how they can carry on their paws, but also many other things that are either public health things or actual diseases for chickens or dogs and things as well. So it is very important to try and monitor for them and have a good look for them, and try and keep them under control as much as you can, I would say. And then also, if you're not sure about any other things you have to be doing for avian influenza, then do go to the go to DEFRA's website. So the links are on there, or just Google avian influenza. And it will come up, usually the DEFRA website, so you can have a little read of that. They've got biosecurity self-assessment checklists as well that you can have a look at if you feel a bit sort of overawed with the amount of stuff that that we talk about that you can do. You may never know. Last thing, if you were looking at doing some courses, there's some other things I do. There's Introduction to Chicken Health, Identifying Illness. So you bring your hen and I just show you how to examine your bird at home, because we all know that chickens are prey species. They don't like to show when they're ill until they are literally on death's door. They're cannibals, they're horrible to each other, and if they show the slightest bit of weakness, they'll get picked on. So it's not in their interest to show they're ill, they will hide it. So that's a really good course if you just need a bit of a refresher on where's the crop and how to feel the crop and what should a chicken feel like. And then you leave with a monitoring chart, so that every month you've got a prompt on what to do to check your chicken to make sure that they're all right. Because it'll probably be when you first spot something's wrong that you see, the chart's changing. Why is that? Okay. And then the other course is all about parasites, and we look at nutrition as well. So we learn about different parasites, both creepy crawlies and also wiggly wormies inside. And I ask you to bring a feed sample, and we all chat about your feed and are you feeding the right things, etc. And then if you're a vet, I also do a vet course as well. Otherwise, there are these free webinars every month. James, is there anything else you would like to say?
Just thank you very much, and I hope that some people have found some interesting information and found it useful for them.
Good. Well, thank you all then.
If they want any further, I was going to say, if they want any further information, you're welcome to give them my details, and they can call me or send us an email.
So James's email
and we do what we can to help.
Was on my flyers, so that's where to find him. But he seems to respond beautifully to Facebook Messenger as well. So so you can find him through Facebook too. Right, thank you very much for coming, everyone.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.